Loving Sairam, Dr. Sivakumar Srinivasan, the Sri Satya Sai Global Council of Trinidad and Tobago, lovingly welcomes you to the series Awake, Unite and Inspire. We are very happy, fortunate, and blessed to have you as our guest on this evening's program. So, Dr. Shivakumar, share with us, how did you first come into contact with our beloved Mother Sai?
Saram Brother Faiz, I wanted to start with a prayer to Swami. First, sincere thanks for this opportunity to relive the moments with Swami and the wonderful experiences he has given us. And to thank you for being the instrument for this opportunity. And I pray that Swami completely takes over and makes the session meaningful, not only for us, but everyone who gets to hear and see us. Jai Sai Ram. To answer your question, I think it was in the late 60s. I was a young kid, maybe 6, 7 years old, when I heard about Swami. We had rented our house upstairs to a family, and they had an elderly grandmother in the house who was illiterate. She had not gone to school. And she used to write lovely poetry inspired by Swami. She wouldn't know what she's writing, but she would write this beautiful poetry. So that was the first time I think I heard about Swami, but clearly that was not the time for us to get into his fold. So we did not get into his fold at that time. The next call came, I think, in the mid-80s. By this time, my parents had migrated. They had gone. My father had taken up an assignment in Bahrain. My father used to work for an American oil company in Vizag, which is where I grew up the first 17 years of my life. So I can speak Telugu fluently, as I can also speak Tamil and, of course, English. And when the government took over Caltex oil refineries, my father had decided to take up a job in the Middle East. So when, as you know, most of us, when we move out of India, we become more pious and we participate more in the religious and spiritual activities. So was the case with my parents. They were attending Vishnu Sahasranamam and Satisai bhajans and activities, and they got quite involved to the point that my mother, she has a large family in Chennai. She came and told all of them, look, from now onwards, Thursdays evening, you all take turns in doing bhajans in your house. And she told them all about Swami, and many of them had not seen Swami, but of course they'd heard of him being in Tamil Nadu. And sure enough, soon after that, they've all started attending Sundaram in Chennai regularly. But anyway, the bhajans were happening on Thursdays. So whenever I used to come from Chidambaram, which is about 8-9 hours away from Chennai, that time used to be called Madras, I used to attend the bhajans, but that was it. I used to sit in the back. They all used to sing. I used to sing behind, and that was my involvement. And then in 1985, my mother insisted that I escort her to Puttaparthi to connect her with her Bahrain friends who are coming from Bahrain to attend Swami's 60th birthday. I kind of reluctantly agreed. And I said, Mom, I'm very busy. I'll spend a day, connect you with your friends, and then I'm going to go to Chidambaram because I was doing my residency at that time after dental school. But interestingly, the one day that I told her turned out to be 7 days. And the reason it turned out to be 7 days was because I was blown away, not really by Swami, but by Puttaparthi. I had never seen a place. I was accommodated in a shed. Those days, there were no round buildings, no West Block, no N Block, nothing. So it was just a long shed for men with a 7x4 chalk piece drawn on the ground. And I kept my camera, my wallet. Nobody had any interest in my belongings. And I didn't have to pay to stay. And they served me, I'm a foodie, and they served me breakfast, lunch, and dinner most lovingly. Like the more, if you want more, I mean, that kind of thing, it is not like, hey, it's free food here, take it. It was amazing. I was so amazed by the Sevadel, and I could only make out what they were trying to convey to me based on the tone of the Sairam. Sairam means I'm doing something wrong, but otherwise it's Sairam, it was amazing. And then the other thing that was mind-blowing for me was there was no place to put money. There was no donation box. There's no one who wanted money, who would accept money. That was mind-blowing to me, in India, a place like this. And even though it was not love at first sight with Swami, I do remember what Swami said. I don't credit myself to have a good memory, but I clearly remember what he said on that birthday. On the 60th birthday, Swami said, each and every one of you are here because I have invited you. There's so many scorpions in this place, but not one of you will be harmed because I invited you. He said, the only thing you need to do in life is don't mess with anybody else's life. Take care of yourself. And then the other thing that he said on that birthday discourse, which I remember very clearly, is he spoke about the watch. Watch your words, watch your actions, watch your thoughts, watch your character, watch your heart. That's what I remember from that visit. And I think more than Swami, I think it is the organization that really, and Puttaparthi, that really was my love at first sight, was more with Puttaparthi than really with Swami at that visit. Of course, he completely bowled me over after that in my subsequent visits, but at the first visit, but that's my exposure to him. Saira.
Very, very beautiful and inspiring, Dr. Sivakumar. So, you have also served in Swami's hospitals in India for over 15 years. Can you share a little bit about how that experience was for you?
Well, subsequent to my first visit, we used to visit Puttaparthi very often. All of us, actually my sister was probably the last to come into Swami's fold, but my brother and I were very much there. And my brother used to sing in Sundaram in Chennai. And but all I remember in Puttaparthi was we having our lunch and then running in the sun with a handkerchief on our heads, standing or sitting to be part of the queues. I don't know if you remember those days of the queues. You line up, it's not first come, first serve. It is whatever token. If you could have come at the very end, but your line gets picked, then you're in the first row. But yet in the hot sun, I remember we used to go and line up. So from that situation to then having an opportunity to work in Swami's hospital, the reason I mentioned this is because I had this really funny moment when the first year when I got to serve, as a doctor, I was allowed to sit maybe about 20 feet from the bhajan hall entrance door. Okay, the interview room was on the right, and right from where we are sitting, hardly 20 feet away, we can see the door of the bhajan hall. So it's such close proximity. And I remember saying, Swami, to pull teeth, if I could get displaced, I'll pull as many teeth as possible. So the experience in Puttaparthi, I have to tell you, or serving, I think it's, I don't know how many lifetimes of yearning has resulted in this opportunity to work in Swami's hospital. Because at the time when I worked, Swami had to approve your ability to work in the hospital. All applications, you have to submit an application with a photograph, and then Swami would say, yes, then they will contact you and say, yes, you can come and work now. So I'm so thankful to Swami for that opportunity. And I have to tell you, I have learned so much in working in Swami's institute, because the doctors who are there all day and for so many years, the resident dentists who are there, each of them have their own story. And it's so inspiring to see them work, to see how they treat their patients, to hear their own personal stories, that I feel that my troubles are nothing compared to how they have gotten in. You know, for them to have sacrificed, I mean, they're young dentists, to have sacrificed all of their careers and to have really lived a spiritual dream of wanting only Swami, and to have come and taken up a full-time position there. Most of them started with no pay. Okay, and they were very fortunate, or they were very thankful when they got accommodation inside the ashram. And it is, I mean, all of these, I think, are the highlights of my being there. There's also a drama that Swami will play. When I'm there, all these people with difficult wisdom teeth, I'm a surgeon, I'm a maxillofacial surgeon. So all these surgical cases will magically show up. And I'll chuckle and say, Swami, you make it appear as though my presence is required here. But I know, you know, Swami doesn't need us. We need him. But he'll make it appear as though there was a purpose to my coming there. But I've thoroughly enjoyed, and I continue to enjoy, and I'm really looking forward to, because in all these years, I missed only last year. Because of COVID, I have not gone. Otherwise, every Shivaratri, I'm usually there in Puttaparthi. And I also teach basic life support and advanced cardiac life support. I'm an instructor for both. I teach that in the super specialty hospital in Bangalore. And then I work in the dental clinic in Puttaparthi, and that's where I've been working. And I'm looking forward. I'm going there in July this year. I'm also going there in September this year. So I'm really excited to get my spiritual batteries charged again. But it's been a beautiful experience, Saira.
That is absolutely wonderful, brother, and very heartening. And how privileged and blessed you are to have been selected by Swami to serve for so many years in one of his medical institutions. Surely, as you said, and by Swami's divine grace and will. And you go again this year again.
Yes.
Wonderful,
Yes.
wonderful opportunities that continue, that Swami continues to present. So, brother, having traveled to Puttaparthi so many times, and definitely having the darshan of Swami and many, many divine interactions, can you share at least two of your most memorable experiences with Mother Sai?
This is a tough one, because I have to pick and choose which ones to share. I am going to share one which will not reflect very nice on me, but I think it's important because many of us struggle through wanting to get rid of some habits in life. Could it be something to do with eating, shopping, weaknesses with watching, movies, or whatever it be, So I think for all of those who have struggles or even with their sadhana, I wanted to share something that happened in my life. I think this was the spring of 1990. I was almost in my final year of my finishing my master's in maxillofacial surgery in India. And I had somehow picked up this habit of smoking. I'm probably already 5 months into it and smoking more than a pack a day. And I was feeling miserable. I'll tell you why. Because I am a maxillofacial surgeon, as I mentioned to you, and we did a lot of cancer surgery for people with oral cancer. And I used to advise them not to chew tobacco, not to smoke. And here I had suddenly picked up this habit, and I was smoking completely in secrecy. My roommate did not know I was smoking. that's how it was. And it was not a good time because I was not feeling good about it. Another reason was because during my second trip to Puttaparthi, which was in 1987 or 88, the person sitting next to me somehow kept inspiring me and saying, oh, you're a doctor, you can do this, you can do that. And I told him my life is full. He said, no, no, no. You do say of Swami's work, Swami will do your work. And those days I had a practice in town. I had a private practice. So interestingly, what he said turned out to be true. I was instrumental in starting a bhajana mandali in the university at the music college. Phenomenal acoustics. And all these students would come, we're very disciplined. They'll come on time, we'll have a bhajan. After bhajan, everybody will disperse, women on one side, men on one side. The bhajans were wonderful. And I was the one who used to show the aarti at the end. And I used to feel miserable showing the aarti because I'm like, this habit had started and I'm like, Swami, I'm not supposed to be even showing the aarti to you, and what right do I have? So all these things are happening. And in fact, that picture which I had in the altar at the music college was the one that you would see as the one I sent you. Was I had the picture in hand in Kodaikanal wanting Swami to sign it. Swami came and manifested Vibhuti, put it into the picture, put it on my hand, and then I left the picture, but I wanted his signature. So I left the picture with my brother, who at that time was part of the Sundaram group, helping construction of the Sai Shruti. They were lifting bricks and all that. So he got Swami to sign the picture. So that picture with Love Baba was a big frame picture that I used to show the aarti to. So all in all, I was feeling bad about this habit. And here I was in the train on the way to Puttaparthi, because my brother and my father, by the time my parents had moved to America, and my brother also had moved, I was the only one left in India. So my brother and my father called me and said they wanted me to go to Puttaparthi to ask Swami about my father's heart condition, whether he should have surgery or not. This was the scenario. They called me and I didn't think twice about it, as though I'm going to visit my uncle. I set out on the train to go to see Swami. And in the train, I had the last cigarette and then I said, Swami, I don't like this habit. I don't want to have an urge to smoke. Please help. That's it. It was a sincere prayer, but said to him. And then I reached Puttaparthi. Swami was not there in Puttaparthi. He was in Bangalore. Those days were not the days of the internet, so I couldn't tell where he was. So then I moved from Puttaparthi to Bangalore and then saw him for darshan. And fortunately, I had a good place. He came and he explained everything. He said, yes, blocks means circulation to the heart is not going to be good. It is better for him to have the surgery. So Swami said all this to me. And then I came back to Chidambaram and then I had no urge to smoke. So that is the first experience I wanted to share with you, because for all those who are struggling with either their sadhana or habits, all I wanted to say was Swami is there all the time, like someone beautifully explained, it's like water. Swami is all around us and within us, and we are like fish, So he's there everywhere, every moment. So all we have to do is sincerely talk to him and offer a prayer, and he will definitely answer it. So that's the first experience I wanted to share. The second one that comes to mind is something, again, which is very helpful for all the officers of Sai centers, and also anyone who's doing work in Swami's name, to show how Swami, he takes it very seriously when you're doing any work in his name and you have no personal agenda. How he responds is actually what I wanted to illustrate in this example. So going back, this is many years ago now. I was a devotional coordinator in the center, and somebody had just come from Singapore. My education coordinator had gone to Singapore and had just come back. And she said, Shiva, there in Singapore, they have beautiful screen. They project Swami's words, lyrics, and then bhajans. And then they also put the meaning. It is fantastic. I think you should try it out. I said, absolutely, why not? So as a trial basis in the South Bethesda Center, which is where I belong, I put up a screen and put up the words. And then I sent a little survey to the membership asking them, what do they think about it? Normally, as you know, as an office bearer, you send an email, you hardly get anybody to respond. But when I sent that email, I had so many responses from parents saying, oh my God, I'm able to follow the bhajan. Oh, my child loves it because now I can explain the meaning to him. He's able to understand the meaning. So the response was overwhelming. I've never seen that before. So I shared it with my committee. And I said, look, this response is fantastic. I think we need to keep the screen. There were a few senior devotees who had said that, it is not a good idea. So I called them and spoke to them. And they said, oh, Shiva, if everybody wants to have it, no problem. I don't see a problem with that, except one family. They're very good friends of mine. I love them dearly. But they said that, no, Shiva, I don't think it's a good idea. And I tried to explain to them, saying that everybody wants it, and I think I need to go keep it. Then they said, we won't come to the center. They were very musically gifted family too. It was hard, but I said, well, that's a choice that you're making, So a week went by, 2 weeks went by, and then I got a phone call. And the person said to me, Shiva, you're doing something that Swami would not like. That really got to me, because even if everybody in the center wanted something, but if Swami didn't want it, I have no business whatsoever in keeping it. So I was very pained. And I sent word through all the senior devotees who went from Washington to Parthi. And I said, please ask Swami, please ask Swami. They all would come back and say, Anil Kumar said you can keep it, but it was not from Swami. So I said, no. So I was getting ready to go. I think it was March of 2008. There was a group going from here, but I was also going to work in the hospital at that time. And it coincided. And I told my wife, I remember upstairs in our kitchen, I said to her, this is bothering me. I am going to ask Swami. Swami will give me an answer directly. And I just said this to her. And then I left to Parthi. But when I reached Parthi and saw the amount of crowd, the number of people, the dignitaries waiting there, I didn't, want to attract Swami's attention. So I took a paper, and like you would write to your senior in your organization or something, that's how I drafted the letter. Dear Swami, this is about us. I'm a devotional coordinator at South Bethesda Center. I have a question about the screen. Some of the devotees in the center feel that you have a problem with the screen. I want to know from you whether you have any problem with me keeping a screen to project the words of bhajans and the meaning of the bhajans. It seems like a small matter, but for me, it was very meaningful to find out from Swami. I signed my name, had the paper in my hand. And here it's an important thing. I said in my mind two things. I said, Swami, definitely my hearing is not up to par. I play a tambourine for years, and as a surgeon, I use a drill every day. So my hearing is not at the best. When you speak, your students are putting their ear next to your mouth to listen to what you have to say. With me, you have to be very clear. I have to be able to hear you. So that was one condition in my mind, nothing written on the paper. The second condition I put for him was, I said, don't say something that then I have to interpret. What is it that you said? I said, you have to be very clear with me, whether you agree with this, you don't agree with it, but it has to be very clear. So that was my prayer to Swami. I had the letter in my hand. He came and he looked at me and asked for the letter. I was hesitant, because I didn't want to go if it wasn't me. And then the doctor behind me pushed me and said, he's calling you, go. So I went to Swami, knelt down, gave the letter, and I was on the way to come back to sit down to my place when he opened the letter. So I went back to him, knelt next to him. He said, what? And I explained to him about the screen. He said, what again? I again explained to him about the screen. And you wouldn't believe it, Brother Faiz. He almost shouted, saying, no problem. My question was, do you have a problem with the screen? And he almost shouted at me, so I would hear very clearly, no problem. I was so happy. I was about to sit back in my seat. I remembered my daughter asking me that morning on a phone call, Daddy, did you get Fat Namaskar? Suddenly that thought came to me. I said, Swami, can I take Fat Namaskar? He said, just go. So I took his Fat Namaskar, sat down. I was so happy. A few minutes later, I usually keep my eyes closed. The person who wheeled Swami into the interview room tapped on and said, Swami is calling you. I'm like, I almost felt like going to the headmaster's office because I didn't have anything else. I mean, my head was blank. My only question was about the screen. Nothing else I wrote in the letter. So I knocked on the door, went inside, just Swami and me. And he said, you have doubt. Thinking about it now, I feel I could have asked him anything, but the only thing again that came to my head was, Swami, I said, I had the doubt about the screen, but you answered me already. And then I went on to explain, saying that some senior devotees in the center said, Swami, that you would not like to have a screen in your center. I use the word your center, because I know the center belonged to him, not to South Bethesda or not to any of us. And he gave a beautiful explanation. Swami said, people use my name to express their opinion. He said, people use my name to express their opinion. And then he, at that time, was on the wheelchair, and he was not, he was breathing very short, but he pushed himself from his chair, put his hand on mine. He said, I have no problem, you keep it. He touched my hand a few times and said, you keep it. It was so clear. Exactly what I asked in my mind, he made sure he answered. So for all, I think, anyone who's doing any work for Swami in his name, all we have to do is ask him. He'll find a way to completely come and connect with you and assure you, whether what you're doing is what he would like or whether he would not like. And in the same time I asked him, I said, Swami, then I remembered, I said, Swami, my mother, she was actually with me on that trip. So, and I said to him, my mother is here. She said, yeah, I know. And then he went to do this, and I thought he was going to give me vibhuti for her. So I put my hand, but then he created a chain. He went on to put the chain on me, and and my mind was all confused. Why chain for me? I'm asking you about my mother. And then he said, you put the chain, mother will be fine. And, he struggled, but he put the chain on me. And he said this. And then it was so interesting. I think, whenever you have this question, he answers. I think it's 4 or 5 months later, I was watching some video, and another devotee, he does the exact same thing. He creates a chain for the son and says, you put it, it's good for your mother. So, I mean, it's so beautiful. And then he said, I'll call you tomorrow morning. And then it was so beautiful. And then when he said that, I just got up. I was very ashamed. I just turned my back and walked out of the interview room. So till today, my wife and I, when we leave the prayer room, we will back track. We will not turn around. That was the lesson I learned that day. I said, I don't even know what came of. I just felt very bad that I was taking his valuable time, and I didn't want to take his valuable time. So I said, job is done. Let's leave, and I left the interview room. So those are the two experiences that come right to my mind I know there are many more, but I just wanted to share that because they all have a meaning, other than, Swami gave you this, Swami gave you that, but there is a meaning behind, what that experience was, for me is as an officer, it was beautiful how Swami answered it. Sairam.
Very, very inspiring, brother. And that is such a powerful lesson for all of us. That when in doubt, when you are not sure, the most important thing is to do what will please Swami.
Mm.
And in this case, Swami categorically showed you and told you what it is he wanted, what was pleasing to him. And it's important to do that. And once you follow that, then he will look after everything else, So that is a very beautiful message. But, brother, I'm prompted to ask you to share at least one more of these memorable experiences.
I have to, I mean, a few more come to mind, one, if there's time, I'll go over it because it's more to do with, how I got married, because I was not ready to get married. And my mother was asking for me to get married. And I was in dental school in Boston. The year was 1991, December. No, sorry, 92, December. Because my father and mother were on the way to Puttaparthi, because my father had the heart surgery in Puttaparthi, even though he had medical insurance in the United States. And he didn't have to pay anything in the United States. He chose to come to Parthi to have the surgery done in 1992, December. And then Swami had actually commented to, I think, Mr. Srinivasan, saying that his brother, my uncle is a very famous cardiologist in Chennai. He said his brother is a famous cardiologist in Chennai. He is in America, but he came here and he asked Mr. Srinivasan, do you know why? And he said he came here because of faith. So at any rate, that was a sidetrack. But in that trip, before my parents left for India, my mother approached me and said, you should get married. And the reason I bring this up, because I know quite many people in our own family who are trying to make the choice of whom to marry, and does a person have a 5-year plan? Is this is happening? There are so many preconditions before they are willing to make a commitment and a choice. So I shared this only because mine was completely different. Even in those days, not that it was in the 50s, I wasn't even born then, but this is in the 90s. So this is what happened. So I told my mom, I said, Mom, I'm not ready to get married because I still want to do maxillofacial surgery and I haven't gotten into a residency. I'm just finishing, because I'd finished 10 years in India. I'd come to the United States and I'd done 2 years of advanced standing to get a dental degree in America, DDS or DMD. I got a DMD. Now I have to follow my dream of becoming a surgeon in America, which is not very easy. I say, in all honesty, for someone with a brown skin from India, it's not very easy to become a surgeon because most oral surgeons in the United States are Caucasians. So it is not easy. So that was my dream. So I had not gotten to a residency. So I told my mom, you go ask Swami, whomever he points, I'm ready to get married to. Are you ready? Because we are from a very traditional Brahmin family, an Iyer family. So I wasn't sure my mother would say yes, but she said yes. And I told her no horoscope matching, nothing. He should point, you should say yes. And I thought, among the thousands of devotees who are showing up in Patti, what are the chances that he's going to match make for me? So I forgot about this. So this is in December, and then suddenly in the month of March, I get a call, from my mom and my aunt from Puttaparthi. They are very excited, calling me, saying, yeah. I said, so calm down, what's going on, tell me. So what had actually happened was, in those days, you're allowed to take a a plate with candy. If you remember those days, Swami would come touch the candy, throw the candy, bless the candy, do all that kind of stuff. So the previous day he had come and he himself went down and picked up the picture. Even though my mother didn't do any horoscope, my mother-in-law had given my mother, my wife's picture and horoscope to my mother. She just took it with her, not to compare. Swami himself had come and taken it. The next day, they had sweets, candies in their plates. Swami came from a distance, looked at the plate intently, and then there was a lot of excitement around them. And then Swami moved away, and then they saw a lot of candy on their plate, different candy and candy near their feet. So there was a lot of excitement. So they put all the candy on the plate. And then after the darshan got over, the monkey mind questioned. So they went to the candy store where they had purchased the candy and asked that man, did we buy this candy from you? And he said, this is foreign candy, madam. We don't sell it in Puttaparthi. So there's a whole bunch of candy that Swami had manifested from a distance. So that was a clear indication to my parents that this is the girl we should proceed with. And fortunately, my wife's family were also Baba devotees. So they were fine with no horoscope. Till today, I don't believe we've ever matched our horoscope. And interestingly, for the audience, before I never saw the picture of my wife, neither did she see my picture. We had one phone call in the morning, but the afternoon phone call, she decided already. And for me, the decision was already made by Swami. So by the time we met for the first time, our engagement was already over in India. So all I wanted to say to all the youngsters who are looking for partners is you have to, at some point of time, leave it to Swami and trust Swami to guide you from inside. And sometimes we put a lot of objectivity into it, because at the time when my wife married me, I had really no clear, certain future. I had not gotten to a surgical residency. I'd just gotten into an anesthesia residency at Mount Sinai, New York. But that was not my dream. So I explained it to my wife. I said, I still have many years to go. And fortunately, she hung in. She supported me financially. And today, fortunately, Swami's grace, we are doing very well. So that is definitely something I as an experience, I can share with you. So this is Swami's way of, taking care of us. Sai Ram.
Very, very beautiful, brother. Because marriage is serious business. So you want to make sure that it is his will rather than your will, because he knows the past, present, and future. And he knows what is best for you more than we will ever know. Yes, so that is very, very beautiful, with a lot of beautiful lessons, as you said, for young people, and how we should go about getting partners, but ensuring that we get the blessings or the divine will of Swami in that aspect of our lives, is what he wants rather than what we want, because it's a lifetime commitment.
Right.
Yes, so thank you very much for sharing that. So, Dr. Sivakumar, what does Sai Baba mean to you today?
To me, without a question, Baba is God. I grew up in a very religious family. Mom was very spiritual, very religious, ritualistic. And that part was not very attractive to me. But what really got me in was the spiritual aspects of Swami's teachings. The love all, serve all, help ever, hurt never, look at everyone. I think I have to really thank my parents as well, because we grew up in Vizag, and my parents never distinguished us in any way because of our caste. Our friends, our closest friend was a Muslim by name Muhammad Azruddin. And we've gone to his house many, many times. And auntie would cook vegetarian food for us and make wonderful biryanis. We grew up like that. So I have to give a lot of credit to my parents because they never, ever made any distinctions in our mind between, oh, you have to go and be friends with X, Y, or Z. Never. They have come and done sleepovers in our house in those days. I'm talking about in the 60s and 70s. And then we have gone over to their house. And till today, we are very close friends. That, I think, was something I credit my parents a lot for. And then Swami's teachings of the oneness, being, treat everyone, all are one, be alike to everyone. And that is something that I have really applied in my life. And thanks to Swami, I have a practice, busy practice in Maryland, and my patients are very diverse. I have patients from all ethnicities. My staff are also from multiple ethnicities in the office, and we treat everyone the same. We don't make any distinctions based on who they are, what profession they are. The care that everyone gets in the office is identical, and that is all thanks to Swami. And, to me, Swami is God. And the reason I say that is from all our stories that we hear, Rama, Krishna, we've heard about them, we've read about them. And here with Swami, I have literally seen that he does everything that we've known a God to do. Even every thought, like I explained to you earlier, the thought I had in my mind, he heard it so loudly and he made sure he conveyed it. Not just that day, the following day, I didn't know this. That night before I went to sleep, my mother said, "Can I see your chain?" So I took the chain out. She took it to the bathroom. She saw it. And then she gave it back to me. I put it on. She didn't say a word to me. But in her mind, she had a thought, Swami did not give him a locket. So the next day morning, Swami came and I waited for, normally I don't go for morning darshan because I'm at work. I always want to be there ahead of time at work. I like to start sharp on time. So I usually go there ahead of time. That morning I went and sat down because Swami had said he will talk to mom and I in the morning. So he came and he looked at me and said, "Locket Ichana. Did I give you a locket?" I wanted to make sure I heard him. So I said, "Ha, Swami." He repeated himself. I said, "No." And I said, "I have no interest in it." Because even the chain, I didn't ask him for it. But the point I'm conveying is how he read my mother's thought. So he waved his hand, made a locket. He had me take the chain out. I couldn't. One of the person who's with him took the chain out. And Swami tried to put the locket into the chain. It's all his drama. It did not go through. And then he took both in his hand, went into the interview room. Then he left. And then one of his, the person with him came and gave me the chain and the locket and said, "Swami asked you to bring this in the evening." And that was the end of it. To make a long story short, just to convey this meaning of how Swami reads every thought and every thing that happens, that evening what had happened, I found out later. I mean, I'll tell you what happened first and then I'll give you the... So that evening, Swami, the bhajans got done, fantastic bhajans. And as the Aarti was going on, Swami was just coming out of the bhajan hall. And he was coming out. I said in my heart, "Swami, you said you will call, but your time is whenever it is." I accepted. As that thought came to my mind and I said that in my heart, I opened my eyes. Swami did this just like that with his finger. Normally, I would not have responded, But he, inside of me, made it very clear that he was calling me. By the time the car came in front of me and the VC and all got into the car, and I came around the car and I looked at Swami, he said, Mako Bulao. He said, call your mother. So then I called mom, we went inside, and then Swami said, did you show your mother the locket? And then I tried to explain to him, saying, Swami, the locket, the chain is so thick that it's not going through the locket. And then, he did like this. He created another chain, put it on my mother, and my mother wears hearing aids. When he put the chain on my mother's, both her hearing aids came out, but she heard the interview beautifully without hearing aids. And then I looked at his hand, he had a locket. So then he took my locket, and he had a locket, and my locket just disappeared in thin air. And then he took that locket that he had in his hand, he looked at me, blew on it once. Then he looked at my mother, blew on it twice. And I'm thinking in my head, Swami, you can make the earth into sky, sky into earth. What is this blowing that you're doing? I was thinking in my mind. But the reason I'm mentioning this is because the lady sitting next to my mother had asked my mother, what happened between Swami and your son this morning? And my mother had told her, Swami made a locket, but it was not big enough to accommodate the chain. What is it for Swami? If he blows on it, it'll become big. My mother had told this to a lady sitting next to her. I found out about this later. So that is what Swami did in the interview room. To show that, anything, anywhere, he registers. And he wanted to prove that very clearly. And then my mother asked him a spiritual question. She said, Swami, what do I do with these thoughts in my head? These not so positive thoughts. I looked at Swami, and Swami was doing this. I said, what's Swami doing that? And Swami looked at my mother and said, Nuala chestav kada? Meaning, don't you do that? My mother has a practice, when a thought comes to her which is not complimentary, she would pat herself on the head and say, why did this thought come to my head? It's almost like he is in Washington watching my mother. He said, don't you do that? He said, you continue to do that, that's good enough. Meaning, when a bad thought comes, you register the thought as bad, you acknowledge the thought as bad, and tell yourself that's not a good thought. He said, that's good, you keep doing that. So who else other than God knows everything about you, every thought, every act that is going on outside? Who else would know other than God? So in more ways, and even as recently as last week, we were leaving. Can I share one other experience? This is too much, because I do the study circles to these South Bethesda Center, and we've been talking a lot on doing the action, but leaving the result to Swami. We've been talking a lot about it, a lot of talk, and what happened in Nairobi was an amazing experience. So my wife and I were taking the flight out from Nairobi late night Saturday, which is Sunday morning, 1:20 is our departure, to Doha. And we were spending one day in Doha because my cousin is a captain for Qatar and he resides in Doha. He's Swami student, Ananta Krishnan Kailash. He goes by the name of Madhu from Swami's Puttaparthi campus. So we were going to visit him and his family for a day and then come back to Washington on Monday, the 25th, which is just the 25th that just passed now, the day after the Aradhana day. So we were at the airport, and clearly my cousin had communicated, all you need is an RT-PCR for you transiting through Doha. the new requirements, you don't need that something called ETRAS. It's like a portal that you need to complete in order to enter into Doha. He said, you don't need it. And he sent me a clip to show anybody who asked me at the airport. I get to the airport on time, contact the person at the desk. They said, no, you need ETRAS. I speak to the manager, show her that. She said, no, you need the ETRAS. You need to complete it. So on Wi-Fi, we are trying to fill the application. It is just circling because you need a local Qatar, SIM for OTP to happen. Anyway, I'm not able to do it. So then somebody suggested, can you have somebody in Doha complete that form for you? So I called my cousin, woke him up at 11:30 in the night, 11:40, and said, Madhu, can you please do this? So he was furiously working, trying to complete it. But even there, they said in process. Meanwhile, I had him speak with the manager, and then the manager's manager, they all said, look, your communication center in Doha has sent us a memo saying that any passenger stopping at Doha needs to have this done. Now, as you can imagine, the time is ticking by, the counters are almost done. Everybody in the counter is gone except one lady. One man packed up all the counters. There's hardly anybody there. And this lady who was supposed to help us, at this point, my cousin said, look, I contacted the OIC in Doha. They contacted the ground staff in Nairobi, and they have said that they will not allow. I'm so sorry. I said, I'm also sorry because I'm not able to stop at your place. I'm going to rebook my tickets tomorrow, go straight to Washington because I have patients on Tuesday I have to operate on. Fine. So time now is 1:20. We put all our boxes back on the cart, come outside the airport. I have no SIM for Nairobi. I have only Wi-Fi. I called Uber before I left the airport. And Uber was outside 100 feet away. We put all the stuff into the car. We're about to leave to go back to my niece's home. She works for the UN in Nairobi. My phone rings. How it can ring without any SIM, mind-boggling, but it rings. My cousin is there from Doha saying, go back, they're holding the flight for you. It's already 1:40, 1:45 a.m. Knocks on my wife's side of the door saying that, ma'am, we're holding the flight for you, please come. We go in, if the airport is almost empty, we have to wake somebody up to scan our bags again. She had to turn the computer on again to print a boarding card. Then the gentleman who told me that it's impossible for me to make the flight is the one taking my bags because the conveyor belt is stopped already. So he's pushing my bags, our check-in bags. Immigration officer has gone, so they found him somewhere, brought him back. I'm not a VIP. I'm an ordinary person. They held the flight for 35 minutes. Swami makes the impossible possible. The only thing is, throughout this experience, I never got upset. I never got angry. And as I was leaving the airport, the only thing I said to him, Swami, you know why you're doing this. You know what is best for us. So if you did not want us to take this flight to go to Doha, that is your will. We accept it. That prayer, I distinctively remember saying before we left the airport to go to the Uber taxi, and see how he can completely make the impossible possible, make them hold a flight up for the two of us. So it is, I don't know, what else can I tell you what Swami is to me? Swami is God. Swami can do anything. It is only the prayer that I have, and the same prayer I had after I spoke to him in Parthi was, I may forget being human. I said, I'm not going to hold on to you, Swami. You hold on to me because you will not let go of me. In my fear, somewhere weakness, I may let go. So I think as long as we hold on to him, I think we are good in this journey. Whatever be the ups and downs, he'll take care of us. Sai Ram.
Brother, that is mind-boggling. Absolutely amazing. And I think what is so very interesting and divine is your mindset by releasing the result into his hands. You know, praying that Swami, you know what is best for me, and releasing it, and then he intervened to do what was best in the situation. I think it's such a very powerful message. And then as you talk about releasing the hand, I remember Swami once saying, my hand is always there. You have to remember never to let go of my hand. My hand is always there. Grace, His presence, and everything. It's just sometimes, because of lack of uh, divine presence or the ego getting in the way, we let go. But I remember him saying, the hand is always there. You have to ensure that you hold on to it. And even when we sometimes forget or the ego gets in the way, his compassion, his grace is there to still reach out and lift us up. So very, very beautiful, powerful message, brother. Thank you so much for that share.
I really believe that it was Swami within me that I think helped to have that attitude on that day to even, I think, I really truly believe any goodness, any greatness is his, because that is all his. I cannot claim, and anytime a patient tells me, oh, your hands were wonderful, everything went great, I would always say, that's his will. Because we just have to let go, let go. And he taught me actually a very powerful lesson. I have to share this with you. Recently, this is so beautiful. This happened before my trip. Almost a month and a half ago, I had someone coming to my office whom I know very well to have a major surgery, which I've done many times. So I was so excited to see this patient, and I had this plan, everything, but nothing went the way I wanted that day. I couldn't do what I told her I was going to do. I was very pained. But very soon, the same day, that realization hit me very clearly. And I think that was the strong lesson he taught me that day. He's saying, effort is yours. Result is your effort and my grace, probably more my grace than anything else. Because even the fact that we are doing something is only because he is within us, allowing us to do it. So that was a very beautiful lesson he taught me, and I don't wish I'll ever forget that in my life. I think that really helped. All those tests, he puts a test one after another to see whether, okay, this time will you pass, this time will you pass. I think in Nairobi I passed the test by his grace, and then he did the impossible, made it possible. Saira.
That is so wonderful, brother. And it brings to memory that there was an interview we conducted with Sister Geeta Mohan Ram. And in that interview, she shared the experience where her parents went to Puttaparthi, and Swami told them, do not leave to go back to Bangalore this evening. And the father willfully deviated and went. But in spite of being disobedient to Swami's instructions, Swami still intervened to save them from a catastrophe. So look at the love and compassion of Mother Sai. Even when you deviate, his overwhelming love and
Yes,
compassion is there. But he still teaches the lesson that if you're obedient to my teachings and you follow it implicitly, my grace will be there. So thank
absolutely.
you. Thank you so much for sharing that, brother. So, brother, Dr. Sivakumar, how has practicing the teachings of Swami over the years continue to transform your life?
I think it's a work in progress, but I have to tell you, like I shared before, I think treating everyone as I would treat somebody in my own family. I think that has been a top priority in my practice, not to put money ahead, but to put what is required for this person. Sometimes I would turn them away from my office and tell them, you don't need this. And sometimes I very clearly will tell them, you need this. Whether you do this here in my office or you don't do this in my office, that's not important, but you need to get this so that you prevent further damage from happening in your mouth, in your life, in your health, why you should do it. So I spend a lot of time with them, educating them. And I think that is all what we have learned from Swami, is to treat everyone who comes to you, as you would treat if that was your closest kith and kin. I think those kind of principles from Swami, to speak the truth, and to be loving, I still have to grow in that aspect, because I'm kind of strict a little bit with my staff on how to get things done. And I just need to learn to put a little bit more love into that strictness, and find a way, to get things done. But fortunately, I have wonderful staff members who know what I really mean, because I have nothing personal with them, but I really want things to go really well for every patient who walks in. So I think all those principles of Swami have greatly helped over the years. And I think also having a very supportive wife and extended family, and all of them being devotees. And we talk of Swami often. Every conversation, we greet each other with Sai Ram, even during our phone calls. And so all of that, mother keeps sending me clips after clips of YouTube videos, so it keeps that going, plus the satsang. And I've also learned very easily, very, very simply, what you input is what's going to be the output. So if I can fill my head with more of listening about Swami's experiences, watching Swami videos, Swami's discourses, and experiences of others, that's so inspiring, because your day starts off such in a beautiful way. A little meditation, listening to something about Swami in the morning before you go to work. And I typically don't listen to any news till after 12. And I listen to like 2-3 minutes of news in the afternoon, just to be a little bit aware of what's going on. Otherwise, both my wife and I, we don't operate the TV in the house to watch news or anything like that, because most of it, unfortunately, is very negative. We both listen to National Public Radio when we are in the car, when possible, but that too is it's a very limited time. So we don't spend a lot of screen time with news. So that is helping a lot, because I think the satsang, and then the Sundays taking part in the center study circles has been another beautiful way, because I typically work 6 days a week. So that one day is the Sunday that's also filled with Swami activity, which is a wonderful way to stay on track, and hope and pray that Swami moves us along on this spiritual journey, and makes the ultimate connection.
Very, very good. Thank you, brother, for sharing. And as you so rightly said, you create the environment to always keep Swami uppermost in your consciousness. That conscious effort to watch the videos, to listen to his talks, to be in good company. And when that is, impregnated in the mind, it even goes into the subconscious. That is what will come out and motivate and guide and inspire your actions. So again, very, very good advice, to all of us, that, what you take in through the senses, that is what is going to come back out. And it's important to monitor, like the watchman, what it is that comes into your system. And you test it against what Swami would like, against his teachings, and you ensure that you are in consonance with that. So very, very beautiful message. So, brother, the final question, the $1,000,000 question, where my guest always tells me, is that you have been practicing, and as you've said, you are a work in progress, as we all are, in arriving at that goal, that internal goal of realizing the inherent divinity within. But if somebody comes to you and said, Dr. Sivakumar, I want to make the world a little more loving, a little more kind, a little more value-based, what can you share that I can do to make that contribution?
First of all, I don't think I'm qualified to give advice at that level. The only thing I can definitely say, though, is taking responsibility for ourselves is something I have learned, because very often I have looked outside as to why something did not go well. And then the last few years, I have completely taken it upon myself and said, what can I do to make a difference? So when I started changing myself, I realized around me the change happened automatically. You know, be it the flow in my practice, be it the financial success in the office, all of it, it starts with me taking responsibility first. Let me be the change, I think was something that I really learned. Spending time, looking at the schedule way ahead of time, making sure, because I speak a lot of my work is because I spend most of my time at my work. 12 hours of my day is spent at work typically. So knowing who is coming, what are their requirements, being fully prepared, not only me being prepared, my staff being prepared. So taking responsibility to say it, I think it all has to start with us. Very often we are looking outside of us to find fault as to why things didn't go well. But if we start being the change we want to really see and have our thought, word, and deed in synchronization, then I think with Swami's helping us from within, we will create the right environment. I've always noticed if I'm happy, people around me seem to be happy. If I'm upset with something, I notice that it's very easy to spread that negative energy around. So if each of us can be positive, if each of us can start having the attitude that everything that is happening is perfect because that's his plan. This is what he has intended for me to go through this experience, for me to go through this today, for this to happen in my life. This is his plan. He knows best. He knows what he is doing. If we are able to do that, then we are not shaken up. Of course, there's going to be some trigger somewhere where he's going to find that spot to see whether we are able to withstand even that particular situation, that particular experience. But I'm sure with time, as we keep remembering, this is for my good, this is for my good, this is for my good, I think a time will come when we'll be more even-keeled. We'll be less upset with things that happen around us. We'll accept it more. And I think that, and I'm beginning to see it. Like I explained, one was Nairobi, and today was another example. My wife and I, we were on a highway when I got the signal in my car saying that you need to pull over, you have a flat tire. I didn't even realize it. My car didn't wobble. I pulled over, and sure enough, one tire was completely flat. And I drive a car that doesn't have a spare. So I had to call someone to bail me out and call another person to drive me to where I needed to go. But the interesting thing is throughout this, my wife and I, neither of us were upset. We were not upset at all. We just did what we needed to do and moved on, saying that Swami must have had a reason for what he's doing. And I think the more we are able to bring this into our lives, I'm really looking forward to, experiencing this. In fact, my cousin said to me, because he's the captain at Qatar, he said, "I think you'll never fly Qatar again." And I said, "No, Madhu, I would like to fly Qatar again and again, provided Swami gives me these experiences, because these experiences are amazing. So if I have to go through a hardship, but to feel Swami's love so powerfully at the end, I'm game. I'm game to do this. So my only thing I can say is that each of us need to be the change we want to be, and we'll have to work in synchronization of thought, word, and deed. And we have to accept everything that happens in our life as what he wants us to go through. And if we can do that, and I only pray that he continues to give us the strength from within to have that attitude, because in the end, all goodness, all greatness is his.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Sivakumar. Again, very, very beautiful, powerful lessons. And I really feel that the mindset and your inner attitude to what happens on the outside is so important. As Swami has always said, it doesn't matter what happens outside of you, which you may not have control of. But the important thing is how you choose to respond from within, which you have control over. So aligning the personal will with the divine will, as you so beautifully put it, is important, and accepting and having the faith that whatever is happening for my greatest good will allow us to respond in a positive way in the best interests of all. So thank you for sharing that beautiful lesson and message. And the Sri Satya Sai Global Council Trinidad and Tobago would like to express gratitude and appreciation to you for taking the time to share your personal journey and transformation, and your continuous transformation as a work in progress at His divine lotus feet. It has been absolutely inspiring, thought-provoking, and very, very blissful listening to your divine experiences. May Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba continue to bless and guide you and the family. And may you all continue to be loving instruments in the unfolding of His divine mission. Jai Sai Ram.
Sai Ram, Brother Faiz, thank you so much for the opportunity, because reliving, and I'm sure with the audience, every one of us, each one of us have had lovely experiences with Swami, but the opportunities like this, where you sit back and recall and feel that emotion and feel that Swami's presence and Swami's energy. And I really thank you all for it. And I thank Swami for this opportunity. And I pray that he guides all of us from within. Jai Sai Ram.